To wear the crown, from the streets to the skies, and we'll break them chains. Place your minds on far that flame.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going deep into something that's been causing a lot of talk lately.
Yeah.
The whole black and brown communities thing here in the U.S. I mean, you see those things with the L.A. officials, those comments, it's intense.
Definitely been a lot of people are thinking about this stuff now, right? Like, we got to face some hard stuff about anti-blackness.
And not just in L.A., it's everywhere.
Within the Latino community itself. Got to look at that.
And that's kind of why we're here doing this whole deep dive thing. We're not just skimming the surface. We got news clips, historical stuff. We even got what community organizations are saying.
Oh, wow.
We want to see the whole picture, the tensions, but also, where's the history of everyone working together?
It's a big question.
What does that even look like moving forward?
Yeah, and we're not talking about some theory here. This is people, real communities.
Right, exactly.
This is about the future, all of us.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay.
That MSNBC clip, the one with Karen Perez Jordan, her comments on that whole LA City Council mess, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
When she said courageous conversations, about anti-blackness and from Latinos, that really hit home.
It did. What I took from it, what really stuck with me was, it's easy to be mad, but she's talking about personal commitment.
Right.
Each of us got to own this. Change starts with us.
Absolutely. But how did we even get here? To get that, we need some historical background. There's this idea, right? Latinos, they're closer to white folks than black folks, so they don't deal with racism or even do it.
Right.
But that's just it's not real.
We got to understand colorism. That's huge.
Okay.
It's when someone judges you, discriminates based on how light or dark your skin is. And in the Latino community, like a lot of places, lighter skin, it's better, darker skin, all the bad stereotypes.
Which kind of ties into that quote, the one from The Atlantic, about Latinos and that illusion of whiteness.
Yeah.
Just because someone benefits from being lighter doesn't mean racism doesn't hit them or they don't do it to others.
Exactly. And Tanya Hernandez, she's a legal scholar. That MSNBC clip, she breaks this down. She talks about how white supremacy, internalized, it's shaped how Latinos experience things and, contributed to anti-blackness in the community.
That's, heavy stuff, but we got to get it. Let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about, how this stuff plays out in the real world. You know what I mean? Arturo Vargas had a good point about redistricting.
Oh, yeah, redistricting. So we're talking about redrawing those electoral district boundaries.
Right.
That can get really tense racially.
How so?
When demographics change and resources get tight, you got different groups all fighting for power, for representation.
Makes sense.
And it's not just some political game. This stuff affects people, funding for schools, healthcare,
infrastructure, all that.
who gets elected, how those districts are drawn, that's real impact.
Right.
And sometimes those in charge, they'll use redistricting on purpose to weaken the voting power of certain groups, especially, communities of color. Makes things even worse, that feeling of competition, fighting over what little there is.
So what you're saying is we got to understand this redistricting thing.
Yeah.
To see how these political things that seem neutral, they're actually
Reinforcing.
reinforcing racial inequality.
Absolutely.
And this is why it matters, right? Being involved locally, knowing how decisions are made.
Exactly. And, we've been talking about some tough stuff.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember black and brown relations, it's not just conflict.
True.
There's a long history of working together, shared struggles, powerful stuff.
That Fox 26 Houston clip, the one about the Underground Railroad, how Mexicans help.
Well, yeah.
That was a great example. It was really something to learn about how Mexicans were vital in helping enslaved black people escape to, freedom in Mexico.
It reminds us, that deep down our communities, we got this history of working together, empathy. And a lot of times these stories, they get lost, all the division in the news, it takes over.
Yeah, it's like that saying, shared struggles breed common bonds.
Exactly.
And it's not just history, right? There's amazing stuff happening right now. Black and brown folks uniting.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that I get really excited about is how black and brown communities, they're coming together, tackling these problems together. We got that website from the Beloved Community Center. That's a great example what that looks like for real.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What exactly do they do at the Beloved Community Center?
Well, they focus on a bunch of stuff, labor organizing, peace building, police accountability, all that, trying to fix these big systemic problems that impact both black and brown communities. They get it, lasting change, you got to work together, solidarity, all that.
So it's about seeing those common threads, those struggles that overlap, and realizing, hey, working together, we can do so much more.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. And that's what's so inspiring about their work. You know, they're not just talking about unity, they're living it. They're showing that, hey, collaboration, it gets results.
This is really good. It reminds me of something we were talking about earlier, how we got to be careful about thinking of the Latino community as like one big thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much diversity within the community itself, right?
For sure, for sure. You know, Miriam Jimenez Roman's article on the Afro-Latino forum that really gets into this, it's super important to see and honor what Afro-Latinos go through. You know, they face a whole different set of challenges at the intersection of Blackness and Latinidad.
It's like they're dealing with this double invisibility, right? Like they might experience anti-Blackness within the Latino community, but then they also face discrimination from people who don't see them as like truly Latino because they're Black.
Exactly. And that's why we got to challenge that whole Black versus brown thing we see all the time in the media. It's fake. It's a fake separation that sets our communities against each other, and it just ignores all that shared history, all that solidarity.
Right. It's like that divide and conquer thing.
Yeah.
So if that's not the right way to think about it, what is? How should we be thinking about these issues?
Well, Jimenez Roman, she talks about this Black and brown paradigm,
okay,
which I think is way more accurate and gives us more power. You know, it's about seeing how our struggles are connected and how much we can do when we work together.
I like that it's so much more hopeful, and it goes with what we've been talking about. It gets us away from that like scarcity mindset and opens up all these possibilities for real collaboration.
Yeah.
Speaking of narratives, though, we can't just ignore the John Leguizamo thing. Remember that clip from the African Diaspora News Channel?
Oh, yeah.
All those comments about Latinos building America that got people talking?
Yeah, it did.
Some people felt like he was trying to erase or downplay what Black Americans have been through and accomplished, while others defended him, saying he was just trying to celebrate Latino contributions.
Right.
It's complicated, for sure.
It is.
I think it makes us ask some important questions about how we talk about history, who gets to tell those stories, and the whole danger of cultural appropriation.
It reminds us, to be careful with our words, how we say things, and the impact they can have even when we mean well.
Definitely.
And it shows how important it is to listen to and center the voices of people who have been pushed to the side for so long.
Something that really hit me in all this was that Masaman YouTube video about Afro-Mexicans.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta admit, I didn't know much about them before.
It's a fascinating part of history, both Mexican and American history, and often overlooked. Afro-Mexicans have done so much for both cultures, but their stories don't get told enough.
It made me realize how much more there is to learn about Black and brown experiences, all the richness and diversity within the U.S. and around the world.
It's not just a U.S. thing.
It's clear this conversation about unity, it goes way beyond our borders.
Global issue for sure, deep historical roots, contemporary implications. I think this deep dive has been a great place to start. Unpacking these complex things and thinking about how to move forward.
Absolutely. We talked about some tough stuff, but I think what really matters is that we're having these conversations.
Right.
Honestly, and really wanting to understand each other better.
That's the key. More understanding, more empathy, and being willing to challenge our own biases,
And even more than that, we got to move beyond just talking and start doing something. So where do we go from here? We've talked about a lot, history, the tension now, some really inspiring stories of unity, but what's the takeaway?
Yeah.
For our listeners, what can we do to help with Black and brown solidarity in our own lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's easy to feel overwhelmed. Where do you even start? I think one of the most important things is how we think about this stuff.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, we get stuck in that us versus them trap. The media loves that.
Yeah.
We need a different story, a we story. Remember that Black and brown idea?
Right.
That's a good place to start.
It makes sense. Seeing how our struggles are connected, we're stronger together. But how do we do that? What do we actually do?
It's small steps, being intentional. We're not going to fix hundreds of years of racism overnight.
Yeah.
But every day we can make choices that build a better future, fairer, more just.
So, what kind of choices are we talking about?
Think about where you are, work, your community, your friends. Are you really seeking out different voices? Are you making sure those who are usually silenced, are they being heard?
That's good. It's about being intentional, who we listen to, who we learn from, whose stories matter.
Exactly. And remember Karen Perez Jordan, those courageous conversations.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to have them, even if they're tough.
It could be hard, though, knowing how to talk about these things, especially when, you don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
Any advice for navigating that stuff, the sensitive topics?
Humility, that's big. Wanting to learn, truly learn.
Okay.
Listen more than you talk. Own your biases, where you're blind to stuff. Messing up, that's part of learning.
It's about making a space where people can talk openly, respectfully, share what they've been through, what they think, feeling safe.
Exactly. And it's not just talking, it's doing. Support those groups, the ones working for Black and Brown unity. Volunteer, donate, just tell people about them.
Right, there's so many amazing groups out there, grassroots, doing the real work.
And they need our help.
They do.
And remember, this deep dive, it's not a one-time thing, it's the start. Keep learning, keep challenging yourself, keep having those tough conversations.
We want to hear from you, our listeners. What's stuck with you from all this?
Yeah.
What are you doing to help bring folks together?
Let us know.
Tell us in the comments, share what you're doing, any resources you got.
Keep the conversation going. Let's support each other, build a future where everyone's treated right.
Change starts with us, all of us.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us on this deep dive. We hope it's got you thinking, got you ready to act, ready to embrace that power of unity.